Western Spring Television. Ours it is.
Good evening and welcome to Spring Global on Western Spring Television. Now the headlines. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky meets with frontline troops in Bakhmut. Thailand Navy recovers the bodies of 5 crew members of a Thai warship that sank. Earthquake struck the coast of Northern California, causing power to thousands of people. My name is Okwayemuni. We now begin with Ukraine, as Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has made an unannounced visit to Bakhmut, an embattled city in the country's east that has been under relentless Russian attacks for several months. Zelensky's office said he had met and spoken with military personnel during the visit to the frontline city and handed out awards to Ukrainian servicemen. Bakhmut has remained in Ukrainian hands during Russia's 300-day-long offensive, thwarting Moscow's goal of capturing the entirety of the Donetsk region and the wider Donbas region. Zelensky had said earlier this month that Russia's efforts to conquer the city, whose pre-war population of 80,000 people now shrunk to close to 10,000, have turned it into ruins. Taking Bakhmut would rupture Ukraine's supply lines and open a route for Russian forces to press on towards Kramatorsk and Sloviansk, which are key Ukrainian strongholds in the region. The World Health Organization says 10 million people, or around a quarter of Ukraine's population, may suffer from a mental health disorder due to the war. WHO's representative in Ukraine, Jano Abich, stated this in a press briefing via video link, adding that up to 10 million people are at risk of some form of a mental disorder, varying from anxiety and stress to more severe conditions. It disclosed that some with suffer severe conditions include post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. So far, at least 700 attacks on Ukraine's healthcare system, WHO data shows, and Russia's increased attacks on critical infrastructure since October have added to the challenges by causing blackouts. Russian President Vladimir Putin has instructed security services to keep greater control of society and root out traitors, spies, and saboteurs. Putin disclosed this while speaking on Security Services Day, widely celebrated in Russia, and further instructed that the borders of the country be strengthened. He ordered security officials to increase control of society and maximize the use of operational, technical, and personnel potential to prevent risks coming from abroad and internal traitors. Putin, citing the need to strengthen the borders, called on the border services and the Federal Security Service, FSB, to intensify their work. China has announced that the joint exercises between the Chinese and Russian Navy in the East China Sea that begin this week will further deepen cooperation between Moscow and Beijing. According to a brief notice posted by China's Eastern Theater Command of the People's Liberation Army, the drills will be held off the coast of Zhejiang province south of Shanghai from Wednesday until next Tuesday. The PLA said the joint exercise is directed at demonstrating the determination and capability of the two sides to jointly respond to maritime security threats and further deepen the China-Russia Comprehensive New Era Strategic Partnership of Coordination. The ministry said the Chinese Navy planned to deploy several surface warships and a submarine for the exercise, and that military aircraft from both sides would take part. The Russian Defense Ministry had earlier said that ships involved in the joint drills included the Varyag missile cruiser, the Marshal Shaposhnikov destroyer, and 2 Corvette-class ships of Russia's Pacific Fleet. European Union has condemned Iran's support for Russia and the ongoing repression of opposition in the country. EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell made this known, adding that he is going to hold a meeting with the Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amir-Abdollahian in Jordan amidst deteriorating Iran-EU relations. He stressed the need for Iran to immediately stop military support to Russia and internal repression within the country. He called for open communication in restoring JCPOA on basis of the Vienna negotiations, stating that the EU would continue working with Iran to restore the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. United Kingdom nurses have staged a second unprecedented strike amid an increasingly acrimonious fight with the government for better wages. Up to 100,000 members of the Royal College of Nursing (RCN) in England, Wales and Northern Ireland are holding the one-day stoppage today after walking out last Thursday for the first time in the trade union's 106 years history. They are demanding an inflation-busting pay increase to make up for years of real terms salary cut. But the government insists recession-hit Britain cannot afford anything above a 4 to 5% rise. A former secretary who worked for the commander of a Nazi concentration camp has been convicted of complicity in the murders of more than 10,505 people. Irmgard Fortuna, aged 97, was taken on a teenage typist as Stuttgart and worked there from 1943 to 1945. Fortuna, the first woman to be tried for Nazi crimes in decades, was given a 2-year suspended jail term. Although she was a civilian worker, the judge agreed she was fully aware of what was going on at the camp. As Fortuna was only 18 or 19 at the time, she was tried in a special juvenile court. About 65,000 people are thought to have died in horrendous conditions at Stuttgart, including Jewish prisoners, non-Jewish Poles, and captured Soviet soldiers. The United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has pledged to make 2023 a year for peace and a year for action, highlighting the need for practical solutions to a raft of pressing problems facing all regions of the world. Mr. Guterres made a pledge at the end of the year press conference at UN headquarters. Building on his general call to action, he announced that he would convene a Climate Ambition Summit in September 2023 and called on every leader to step up. Mr. Guterres said that the Climate Ambition Summit will be convened alongside the General Assembly Opening Week Summit already in the calendar, designed to accelerate action at the halfway point towards the ambitious Sustainable Development Goals.
Also, climate change is another area where good news can be hard to find. We are still clearly moving in the wrong direction. The global emissions gap is growing. The 1.5-degree goal is gasping for breath. National climate plans are falling woefully short, and yet we are not retreating. We are fighting back. And we are fighting back to help emerging economies shift away from coal and accelerate the renewable energy revolution. This year, major multi-billion-dollar just energy transition partnerships were launched with Indonesia, South Africa, and just last week, Vietnam. We are fighting back to restore trust between North and South. This year, COP27 delivered a groundbreaking pathway on the long-stalled issue of loss and damage. We are fighting back to cut through the fog of greenwashing. This year, our high-level expert group launched the How to Guide the how to guide on the credible implementation of net zero pledges for businesses, investors, cities, and regions.
The Thailand Navy has announced that the rescue workers have recovered the bodies of 5 crew members of the Thai warship that sank. It revealed that the dead sailors were found today all wearing life vests, 37 miles south of where the vessel went down on Sunday night. The ship carrying 105 crew sank off the southeast coast on Sunday night after losing power in a storm. Search teams have saved 76 people so far, including one man found today after 2 nights in rough seas. The Thai Navy and Air Force resumed the search today with hundreds of officers on 4 Navy ships as well as several helicopters deployed to scan a vast 50 square kilometers area. The Thai naval commander had earlier suggested search crew had only a 2-day window to find anyone alive in the ocean. India's foreign minister S. Jaishankar says the country has scaled up troop deployment along a disputed border with China to an unprecedented level. He added that India would not let China unilaterally change the status quo of the border. His comments came days after India and Chinese forces clashed in a disputed area along the border in Arunachal Pradesh state. India said the encounter began due to encroachment by Chinese troops. China's foreign ministry has said that, according to their knowledge, the situation on the border was generally stable and the two sides were maintaining dialogue on the issue. You are watching Spring Global on Western Spring Television. We'll be right back after this break.
Yole, King Eve, how are you today?
I'm good, I'm fine, I'm alive.
I really feel like she's not giving the right answer to the question. When one asks you, how are you, and you said, you're saying, I'm alive. It's very annoying, seriously. How are you? I'm fine. I feel I'm fine would be the right answer instead of I'm alive. Not that I asked you if you're dead before.
Go and check all these 14-year-old, 15-year-old, 16-year-old, everybody, they are extraordinarily sexually active.
I feel is being unnecessarily hyper when it comes to the issue of sex, because we talk about other topics and he feels so reserved. He really doesn't have anything much to say when it comes to other stuff. But when it's the issue of sex, I believe he's being unnecessarily hyper. That's when I have to pick an issue with him. I mean, it's just being unnecessarily there when we're talking about sex. Just like a child, his mom just got him his favorite.
Welcome back on Spring Global on Western Spring Television. Now to the rest of the stories. A 6.4 magnitude earthquake has struck the coast of Northern California, causing power to tens of thousands. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, the quake, about 25 miles off the coast of the port city of Eureka, hit at 2:34 a.m. local time this morning. No injuries were immediately reported, and the USGS said an initial assessment showed a low likelihood of casualties. Meanwhile, the National Tsunami Warning Center said a tsunami was not expected. Still, the earthquake caused power to more than 7,000 people in Humboldt County, according to Power Outage. U.S. Humboldt County Office of Emergency Services in a tweet said power is out across the country and advised people not to call 911 unless they are experiencing an immediate emergency. United States lawmakers investigating the January 6, 2020 Capitol invasion have recommended filing criminal charges against former President Donald Trump. During a public meeting yesterday, the congressional panel voted unanimously to refer 4 criminal charges against Trump to the Department of Justice, which has the final say on whether to indict the ex-president. Congressman Jamie Raskin, outlining the panel's findings, said the committee has developed significant evidence that President Trump intended to disrupt the peaceful transition of power under our Constitution. The recommended charges are aiding insurrection, disrupting an official proceeding, conspiracy to defraud the U.S., and conspiracy to make a false statement to the federal government.
Ours is not a system of justice where foot soldiers go to jail and the masterminds and ringleaders get a free pass. Mr. Chairman, as you know, our committee had the opportunity last spring to present much of our evidence to a federal judge, something that distinguishes our investigation from any other congressional investigation I can recall. In the context of resolving evidentiary privilege issues related to the crime-fraud doctrine in the Eastman case, U.S. District Court Judge David Carter examined just a small subset of our evidence to determine whether it showed the likely commission of a federal offense. The judge concluded that both former President Donald Trump and John Eastman likely violated 2 federal criminal statutes.
Pakistani security forces have retaken a police station that was captured, killing all 33 hostage takers. The Pakistani Defense Minister, Khawaja Muhammad Asif, disclosed this, adding that all hostages were freed, while 2 special forces were killed and 10 to 15 members of the military injured. Islamist militants from the Pakistani Taliban seized the center in the remote northwestern Banu district on Sunday. The Pakistani Taliban, also known as the TTP, confirmed it was behind the attack, according to a statement reported by local media. North Korea has condemned Japan's planned military buildup and pledged action against what it described as Tokyo's wrong and dangerous choice to bolster its defense sector. The statement from North Korea's foreign ministry comes just days after Japan unveiled a new $320 billion security strategy that outlined plans for Japan's military to mount counter-strike capabilities and to respond to the threats posed by China, Russia, and North Korea. Japan's sweeping 5-year military strategy will see the country become the world's 3rd largest military spender after the United States and China. In business, Ghana has suspended payments on most of its external debt, effectively defaulting as the country struggles to plug its cavernous balance of payments deficit. The Ghanaian Finance Ministry disclosed this, stating that it will not service debts, including its Eurobonds, commercial loans, and most bilateral loans. The ministry said the government stands ready to engage in discussions with all of its external creditors to make Ghana's debt sustainable. The government called the decision as an interim emergency measure, while some bondholders criticized a lack of clarity in the decision. The suspension of debt payments reflects the perilous state of the economy, which had led the government last week to reach a $3 billion staff-level agreement with the International Monetary Fund. British Airways has apologized after flights due to depart from the United States were grounded for several hours. The airline said it was urgently investigating a technical issue with its third-party flight planning supplier. BA passengers are reported waiting for hours in airports. A spokesman for the airline told the BBC that flights had been departing after delays and said it was sorry for the disruption to customers. Now to the world of sport. World Cup winners Argentina were greeted by jubilant crowds at Buenos Aires airport, and today has been declared a bank holiday in the country. The squad, who defeated France in Sunday's final, landed home this morning. Fans lined the streets as they traveled on an open-top bus to their Football Association's headquarters. The main celebration will be at the capital city Obelisk Monument later this afternoon. The Argentine government said today will be a bank holiday, so fans can express their deepest joy for the national team. Lionel Messi led the team off the plane, which carried his picture on its tail. Three Kenyan athletes have been banned for a collective period of 8 years after breaking anti-doping rules. The Athletics Integrity Unit has banned the marathon runners Alice Jepkemboy Kimutai and Johnstone Kibet Maio for 3 years and sprinter Mark Otieno for 2. Last month, the East African country avoided a sanction by governing body World Athletics despite having 55 athletes 7 suspensions after committing to spend $25 million over the next 5 years to combat doping. Kenya Sports Minister Ababu Nawamba then announced they intended to criminalize doping in athletics in an attempt to bring an end to a string of cases in the sport. Before we end Spring Global, here's a recap of our top stories. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has made an unannounced visit to Bakhmut, an embattled city in the country's east that has been under relentless Russian attacks for several months. The Thailand Navy has announced that rescue workers have recovered the bodies of 5 crew members of a Thai warship that sank. A 6.4 magnitude earthquake has struck off the coast of Northern California, cutting power to tens of thousands. You can follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. I am Okoye Muni. Thanks for watching.